So this is one more data point, Tina, on how the Fed seems to be spending a lot of time and effort, but I'm not sure it's working.
Well, it does, but I also think I'm always fascinated by how human behavior never seems to factor into some of these high-flown financial decisions at all. I mean, greed, insecurity, impatience, these are all kind of human factors that nobody ever seems to factor in. And I think again and again we see that becoming a crisis financially when people just haven't, economists, business people haven't figured that into behavior.
Yeah, I'd add jealousy and rivalry
to
that list.
There is that. Crazy jealousy, toxic testosterone, all of these things that drive the markets.
You know, Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for factoring this into economics, right? But what's amazing is when you talk to economists, his work, though it won a Nobel Prize and is deeply rooted in reality about how people are irrational, is still only slowly finding its way into real economic models. The lag time here is huge.
It's messy.
It's always messy.
Humans are messy.
No, humans are deeply messy, and seeing that emotional quotient is a huge issue, and it is actually where I do think that bringing women into that mix is important.
Ding, 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 ding.
Not that women necessarily have emotional quotient. I know plenty of women who have none, but making that diversity in the decision-making process is critical because that definitely impacts.
We have only heard about EIQ in the last few years. When you talk to headhunters, they say it's one of the top things they look for in finding leaders for companies. I hadn't even heard of it.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the wonderful Hallie Thomas-Dottir, who's one of my heroes, she is a woman who was leading a financial institution in Iceland. It was the only one that didn't go belly up during that whole financial crisis in Iceland, because she just said, wait a minute, I just don't get this. This doesn't make any sense to me. And everyone else was like charging around, making these terrible financial decisions. And she was going, I just don't understand this, and I'm not doing it.
Sheila Bair here in the U.S., the only regulator who said this is insane. And I'm sure you're familiar with the research that looks at financial traders. If they are male, if they are in the presence of a woman, they make riskier decisions, right? They're showing off. They're using testosterone to say, look how bold I can be with my financial decisions, right? There are real differences in the way people act financially.
And it goes beyond financial markets. And if you look internationally on leadership, when you have more women in leadership in countries, the countries tend to do better. They get in fewer wars, they make better investments.
They do. It's interesting. Hallie Dottir, who was just recently at our London Women in the World Summit, I mean, she makes the point that it's the power of three, actually, on a board, for instance. It's like one woman is a token, two women is a minority, three women is a decision-making group, and that you have to have three. That's her whole motto.
Then where's the disconnect? Talked about what you have learned in Women in the World Summits. There are women who want to get corporate board seats, who want to be CEOs of companies, and there's not a company out there today that will openly admit they don't want that. So why isn't it happening yet? What is the real narrative?
I think, firstly, I do think people hire the people they know, and so when it comes to picking boards, I do think that the men who are obviously mostly in charge want to have the people they were in the last foxhole on a deal with. So they turn to the person they were last working with, or people they know in their circle. And they are obviously predominantly men. So that reinforces itself again and again. And secondly, I think one of the big problems we're now having is that this leadership pipeline of women just isn't getting any better, really. Very, very small gains in that. The fact is that, so many women are dropping out of the workforce at the moment that it's become a huge problem. Why are they dropping out of the workforce? It's because it goes back to the childcare issue. It goes back to the evil work-life balance issue, is that women just give up at a certain point. They say, I cannot handle all this with so little paid, family time, with so little time to be with my family. I'm going to have to make this horrible decision.
Then is that corporate America's fault, or is that just life?
No, I think actually that there is real changes happening in corporate America, because what these companies are now beginning to understand is it's very bad for business to lose their women leaders. You're investing all of this time, all of this money into growing women leaders, and then they disappear on you. So you've got now companies like Vodafone, for instance. It's interesting. I mean, this is a male CEO, but this is what I think is very encouraging. Vodafone have recently decreed of 16 weeks fully paid leave, and they're the first kind of multinational to have done that. And they found that recruiting and training new employees to replace women leaving the workforce costs $47 billion, which is far higher than the $28 billion of these maternity benefits and these maternal benefits. So it's actually very good for business because they keep women in the workforce.
But then there's a social question. These companies are ready for it. They want to bring these women back. Are their husbands, are their spouses ready to stay home, and is society ready for that?
Well, what I think is also interesting is you saw today the announcement from Amazon that they're now giving, I think it's 8 weeks of paid paternity leave for fathers, which I think is a very good thing. You know, in Women in the World in London, we had with us the German defense minister, Ursula von der Leyen, who's an amazing woman. She has 7 children, can you believe it? And she's the defense minister. So she's been very, very involved in her career when she was Labour minister and Minister for Family for addressing these issues of work-life, because she had 7 kids, if you can believe it.
She gets Labour.
She's unbelievable. And she said that she changed these maternity laws in Germany. They have 1 year's paid maternity leave, and she also instituted 2 months, in addition, paid paternity leave, which the men only get if they stay home when their wife returns to work. And it's just transformed the whole attitude to men and women. And, you know, in Germany, it was a very, very conservative culture where you were called a raven mother if you left home and went to work with your children.